just quickly introduce myself and then we'll get started. We have half an hour and a lot to cover. So I'm Nithin Koka. I am currently a journalist, but the reason I'm here, I guess, is more because I was a member of Couchsurfing from 2006 until last year when I closed my account due to the paywall. I am active on other networks, including several in the last panel, including such as Trust Roots, and I've been on Be Welcome for several years. And one that's not mentioned, which was HostWriter, which is a platform for journalists, and it's a nonprofit. And actually quite active, though more focused on collaboration between journalists, but they do have a hospitality exchange built into that platform as well. So paywalls are, I think, the hot topic right now. So in my moderation style, I want to I have a ton of questions here, and I imagine that the audience is going to give us a lot of questions as well. So I would actually like to ask both of the speakers to introduce themselves with an elevator pitch, but I'm also going to ask you a question. So imagine literally we're on an elevator. You have to introduce yourself and convince me you're right in 1 to 2 minutes. So I'll start with Fred, because you hosted me 10 years ago, I realize, in Bandung, which is crazy to think it's been that long. So yeah, I believe you're on the pro side, if I'm right.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so since I've known you for 10 years, why should I pay for a service I've been using for free for 10 plus years? And I've hosted so many people, like that's already a cost to me. Why should I pay for something where I already give so much to all these people? So introduce yourself and answer that question.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of people already in the previous talk that sustainability is the key. So if you want to sustain the hospitality exchange, you need fund, you need financial support, right? So I think it's very normal for any kind of community to have a paywall. For me, that's one. And the second one is online businesses is already common now. We know that Airbnb is access, Agoda, other hospitality services is already also running as an online businesses. So I don't think there will be any issues if hospitality exchange also supposed to be not free. And the third is because let's bring Couchsurfing to the table again. They were a non-profit and they change into profit, and they do the paywall and people still pay. So basically the theory is there are people want to pay for some reasons. Yeah, there are a lot of reasons why they pay. But yeah, of course, Couchsurfing still exists up till now, and we believe that there are a lot of controversy. There are a lot of people get disappointed, especially also me myself. Actually, I was a former Couch ambassadors. Yeah, but then yeah, a lot of people also predict that Couchsurfing will be vanished soon, but still people pay. And also work away. There is a work away. People also pay for work away. So things like that is already happened, and it means there are people who want to pay. So there is a market.
And can you quickly introduce yourself? Forgot that
okay. part. Sorry. Yeah, I'm Fred Gahauna. Like Nithin just mentioned, that I'm a former ambassador for almost more than 10 years, and I'm now based in Bali, Indonesia. And it's like what time is it now? Like around 12 a.m. So yeah, that's why it's dark here. I'm in my room. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Great. Well, I'll definitely get back to some of the points you mentioned and push you on them. Is it Liko? Is that how you pronounce it?
Liko,
so great.
Yeah.
Great. I would like you also to introduce yourself, and then I have a question for you for your elevator pitch, which kind of connects with something Fred said. There is clear evidence now that people are willing to pay for useful services like Netflix, is making roads in markets even like India, where people are surprised. Amazon Prime, news outlets like The Correspondent in Europe, Financial Times, New York Times are seeing record subscriber use for their paywalls. And they're all because people find those services useful. I find hospitality exchange useful. Why wouldn't a paywall work? Or why shouldn't there be a paywall?
Well, quickly, maybe to myself, my name is Liko. I'm based in Hamburg, Germany. As you can see, there's still some light out there. It's around 7 o'clock over here. And I've been heavily involved in not maybe from the organizer side, but like as an organizer for local groups in mainly Bremen. In the early years of Hospitality Exchange, I started with Hospitality Club. I've been actually on that very meeting in Hamburg where the whole split of many of the volunteers of Hospitality Club became apparent, and where they started kind of taking the ideas that they had for the HC into Be Welcome. I've been present there and I witnessed that, and it was quite interesting to see. Joining loads and loads of all of these meetings, like legendary Berlin Beach Camp, and I don't know, these kind of things. Having met all of these people that have done amazing work organizing these events, setting up the websites, designing them, checking spam. There were human spam filters on Hospitality Club for quite some time, making sure that there was no dirty mail and these kind of stuff. And nobody ever got money for that. And I find this to be the right thing to do, because simply for the reason that people are opening their doors for free. They're not asking any money for that. And I think that is the quintessential point in HospEx, that I'm giving for free in order to promote cultural exchange and peace, the original idea of Servas, which has started in the wake of Second World War, in order to kind of help people to get connected, exchange, and foster understanding for one another. And I find it absolutely wrong if there is somebody benefiting in a profitable way from somebody who gives for free. That is morally, for me, is not okay.
Great. So I see, yeah, just different. I see the very powerful kind of, we talk about values and kind of the why that's important to kind of hospitality exchange, but also I think what Fred is talking about is kind of sustainability. So I'm going to go back to you. Since you're in Indonesia, I'm very curious to ask, like, that there are many people in Indonesia who probably want to be part of websites like Couchsurfing or any ones we mentioned who probably couldn't afford a paywall. Is there a way, do you feel, to make a paywall that's equitable and inclusive to people in low-income communities or in places like Indonesia? And how would that look? Like, how can you make sure that you're not excluding people that we want to be part of the community if there's a paywall?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of ways that they can do better, yeah, in terms of like Couchsurfing. Like I forget to talk about it, but hosting is supposed to be free, things like that. Like for people who are hosting, they should be free to use the service. So in that way, then as a country like Indonesia or other country, I think that will be fair, yeah, because a lot of Indonesian mostly are hosting people. So hosting is supposed to be free. So that's why I'm agree with Liko here, because of course we let people stay at our place and then interact with us for free. Then hosting is supposed to be free. So people who are traveling have to be paid, yeah, for me, because that's fair. But also there is another way that that can be done by don't make everything paid, yeah. Like there are several services, like main services of hospitality exchange supposed to be free. Like for example, for requests, couch requests, for example, like that. It's supposed to be free for, let's say, limited to 5 requests. And then if you want to request for more, then you have to pay. Things like that is actually a good setting. And you can also do like a donation based, but when you donate in certain of amount of money, then you have more services. So things like that also can be possible, because, like, for example, let's see this GoFundMe, for example. When people try to give donation, they are a certain stage of things that they can get by the donation. So things like that, I think, can be also a solution.
Great. So yeah, it's kind of like more like a soft paywall that doesn't exclude people. Great. Just a reminder to the audience, like, please put questions in the Q&A box. I'm going to be picking them out. I see a lot of stuff going on in the chat, but if you want to ask any questions to either of the speakers, please put in the Q&A box, and then I'll see them and I'll ask them after I get through the initial discussion. So back to you, Liko. I guess one of the challenges I think a lot of the current wave of new platforms are facing is challenges with making, getting enough features or getting design or making it usable for new users. And a lot of that, some of that is connected to the inability to have enough funds to sustain this. If there's no paywall, like, what are the alternative ways you think we can ensure that hospitality exchange platforms are well designed, financially sustainable, and can be designed in ways that are usable? I'm skeptical that using volunteers is enough. So can you prove me wrong? Is volunteerism enough to sustain these platforms?
Well, ideally, yes. And in an ideal world, it would suffice to only have volunteers. But hands down, you're absolutely right. The platforms do need a certain amount of money. And if it's only the rental costs of the servers, for instance. But nevertheless, in principle, it is the people opening their doors, and if you for free of charge, is like possibly one of the oldest customs all around the world to shelter a traveler and to give him food and provide a place to clean him or herself. And I just saw a question from Diane, I think, in the chat, and she said there are other ways of making a profit, and I totally agree with that. There are ways, as Hospitality Club did it back in the days, they had ads. Fine, do that. And finance, for instance, your server costs with some advertisement. That's perfectly fine. Or you could, there's so many other ways of doing it. You could make placements. You could like write a newsletter to all your members and put some ads in there. Something doesn't cost anything, but you could generate a little bit of income to do that, and you don't have to ask any money from the actual members for opening their doors for free. So there are other possibilities, and after all, there are donations like the Welcome does. And if I'd had the money, I would definitely donate. I used to travel the world as a dive instructor as of lately, and as we all know, there was a kind of a weird pandemic going around, making that impossible. So I'm stuck here, and yeah, have to reorganize my life, whatever. So, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So back to you, Fred. I think, unfortunately, like the couchsurfing paywall, I think was done so badly. It was so badly implemented. It was so badly communicated. It was just hit everyone like. It hit most people by complete surprise, and it angered a lot of people. And I think it's created a fear of paywalls in this community, where this overtly negative experience with this one platform has almost made the word like a dirty word. So how do we overcome that? Like the fact that what happened with couchsurfing has left such a negative taste among the community, that can we make paywalls make paywalls good again? Is it possible? And how do we deal with the negative legacy of what happened with couchsurfing last year?
Yeah, I think, everyone knows that couchsurfing is yeah, doing so bad. But right now, nowadays there is a setting, because Couchsurfing used to be a non-profit and then become a profit company, right? But there is also an option to make it as a social enterprise. So you are still enterprise, you still making profit, but then it's a social. So you put back the benefits, the profit into the community. And then, of course, because it's a profit company, you are allowed to pay a certain amount of operational costs. So I think that probably can be a good setting, because there are a lot of startup company right now. They call themselves as a social enterprise. So hospitality exchange that has a paywall, they should also label themselves as a social enterprises. So I think for that, it will be a win-win solution for the community and also for the management of the hospitality exchange. So probably, yeah, that will hopefully cure the trauma of having a paywall in a hospitality exchange because of what Couchsurfing do.
Yeah, I'm very interested, like a social enterprise model. One thing I haven't heard much of is like a platform cooperative model where users would actually be able to own and democratically participate in the platform in a way that's a bit different than a nonprofit. I want to bring up another platform that hasn't been mentioned today, which is Airbnb. So I definitely recall, a decade ago when I was talking to many Couchsurfing users that have switched over to Airbnb. One of the things that they mentioned to me, and particularly for women and people that felt kind of threatened by some of the safety issues that were emerging on Couchsurfing at the time, was that paying for a place to stay was actually felt safer than the unreliability of a free open network that anyone could join. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's what they said. So for Liko, if a paywall would somehow make hospitality exchange safer, should we do it? And how do we? Maybe also interested how you think about safety in open networks as well.
Safety, definitely, especially when it comes to women's safety, is a huge problem. And there were like a number of problems that I've been made aware of in those years that I've been like active in. It was not fun at all. And yes, I would agree, if there is some money that is put into that in this direction to increase safety for all participants, that would be beneficial, and that would be a good reason to bring up some money. But again, I think the main point in all of this is to facilitate hospitality exchange and the spirit of that we all grew to like a lot and love and participate. And it's a little bit, maybe I'm naive or something, but if you think of like the hippies or something, it was a spirit that people wanted to bring up. And I've been participating in that spirit myself in numerous countries all around the world. And what united all of us was this spirit. And getting, I don't know, stumbling into a local meeting somewhere in Istanbul, and people are just hugging you because they seen you somewhere on a forum, and you don't even know them, but they know you, and like you end up like sitting and talking for the entire night. And that is what made this entire HospEx thing for me completely unique. I think it is volunteers, especially on the programming part, that can make a huge difference, especially in terms of safety. And we couldn't thank them enough, especially when they're doing this work for free. As Apali for the cultures just mentioned there, like having, I love that idea. When I heard it, I was like, all my lights went on, and like, oh, wow, that's a great idea to have an official part and an unofficial part, so you can like put honey around the mouth of your host and think like, oh, everything was perfect. But as a matter of fact, on the other side, you write like, oh, he harassed me and blah, blah, blah. That's awesome. This is exactly what we need, these kind of things. And it's like the ideas like these that actually come to fruition in life, and idea and creativity, during, for instance, these meetings that I've been referring to, like as for instance in Istanbul, it's just people joining, meeting, putting their heads together and coming up with solutions for problems at hand, which could also be safety. And but again, as I said, like I don't like the paywall because people are giving something for free. Now you mentioned Airbnb. Here, this is a different concept. Airbnb is more like kind of, and there are actually small hostels and hotels that are present on this platform. So it is more of a commercialized setting. And in such a setting, you, as a host, as a service provider, you have a certain obligation towards your guest. And the guest has the right to demand a certain level of service. And this is something that I do not want to have in HospEx. I'm opening my door. The person that comes in is not here for my bad also, but is mainly here to meet me, or that I meet this person. I want to exchange with the person. I don't care about, like when I started, I had only a single room. I couldn't give them a room. I couldn't even give them a bed. I had my couch and that was it. And sometimes there were like two people and like, yeah, okay, but one of you has to sleep on my camping mattress on the floor or on my hammock or whatever. That's the things I have. And you knew what was coming at you and you agreed. So I'm sorry. And that was never, ever an issue. The people loved it. We had fun. We went out into the city. I showed them around. They told me about their homes and families. And that's the one. And having your doors open for free is what makes this possible and makes it, facilitates it. And that's for me is the main point.
Great. Well, I'll move on to some audience questions. There's one here for Fred. You mentioned kind of that you don't want the paywall. The paywall would not impact, in your idea, would not impact hosts. Do you think that this kind of paywall would affect the ratio of surfers to hosters? And aren't you afraid? Are you afraid that people who host would leave potentially, or how do we make sure we have the right? Yeah, how would a paywall affect? How do you think a paywall would affect like the ratio between hosts and surfers?
Yeah, I think right now in how Couchsurfing put the paywall, some country are still free. Like for example, Indonesia, right? Indonesia is still free. We don't have to pay to use Couchsurfing. They put us into a country that has a lot of hosts, I think, and then that's why they put Indonesia as free. So how they put the paywall setting is actually to balance between the server and the hoster, and the server mostly from Europe, from US, and they have to pay. But for hoster, they are still free. But I'm sure that soon everyone has to pay with Couchsurfing. So by what I think about, the idea is actually making hoster or hosting supposed to be free in terms of fairness. So I think for that, for example, like what happened now with the pandemic and COVID, people are not traveling and things like that. So a lot of couch surfers actually they just host, right? And because there is no other people coming, but they still can hang out. They can together like hosts amongst hosts. They can still hang out and meet and have a meet up. For example, in Jakarta, we still have a lot of meetings happening right now, and mostly they are hoster, like mostly they are hosting. And also in Bali, there isn't any new people coming to the island, and the activity are still going on amongst the hoster because mostly are hoster. So I think by making different services available for different purposes, I think it's a fair situation. Yeah.
All right, thanks. So there's another question here about generating revenue. So what are the, beyond asking for donations or requiring that people pay a fee, like what other ways to generate revenue? You mentioned, Liko, you mentioned advertising, but there's any other things you want to think that could replace and be especially, I guess, most compatible with kind of the ethics and values of hospitality exchange?
Most compatible. Well, one of the ideas that was once pitched to me during the early days from a friend that I made and met via the hospitality club was what I meant with the you could like kind of write some sort of a mini newspaper for the members, like in the form, for instance, of an email round letter, something like round mail, something like that. And within there, within this medium, you could try to place ads that you're like selling directly or trying to sell directly so it's more targeted. It's basically the same thing that any newspaper would do. They were like going out, like for instance, you could ask a store that sells tents and hitchhiking, sorry, like, I don't know, hiking boots and these kind of things that travelers might need, and put it in there. It is difficult, and there is a need for to have money in these platforms, and I wouldn't even mind to have 1 or 2 people actually getting a salary and working full time on a platform, because in order to just make it better, improve safety, improve functionality, you name it. Yeah, but it's difficult.
Fred, I would ask the same question. Like, do you think there's other things besides a paywall that could like fulfill the, just the bare financial stability needs of platforms like Couchsurfing, or these are the other ones in the previous panel?
Yeah, if only there are investors, like the operators has to looking for investors, so to make it free, right? To make it still sustainable. I don't know, maybe doing it into crowdfunding setting, put it into a crowdfunding, and then propose people to crowdfunding the services. And then, I don't know, maybe approach some investors, like angel investors.
Well,
Yeah,
the problem
so I
with
think that's
with investors is always, if they invest something, they want something in return. And crowdfunding might actually work. That maybe like,
or not investor, but more like a grant. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. A grant. Yeah.
Yeah, looking for a grant.
I would say HostWriter, the platform I mentioned, they get a lot of grants to fund, and they have full-time staff, but they use the grants to do kind of program work, such as like enabling collaborations between journalists in different countries, or focus on specific topics like energy or human rights. So they, which I think is interesting. So they use that, use the social mission as a way to also bring money to the platform to enable its functionality.
It's got its perks to be well connected, huh?
Yeah. So maybe a last thing, like, is there a middle ground here? I think there is, like, just hearing from what you both think of what your fellow panelist spoke, like, is there a soft paywall, or is there a mechanism that kind of, is there a way to balance financial sustainability while ensuring kind of inclusivity and safety? And yeah, like, what do we need to know? Like, I mean, there's a lot of ideas in this space, but like, is it something you both are, do you feel optimistic that we'll find a solution going forward as well?
Me too, definitely. Yes, I am optimistic.
Yeah, I think we should be more creative on giving a service. That way, a donation setting is also still working, because I donate. I used to I give donation to Couchsurfing in the early stage. Yeah, when I feel that Couchsurfing is very useful for me, so I donate like easily. So I think we have to be more creative. That's why in the in the discussion before, I'm asking to all the panelists if they are going to have an app for mobile phones, stuff like that. It's supposed to be like, yeah, it's a must. It's not like, it's not anymore things that you have to consider, but it's a must. I think that's why we'd be welcome. It's a good setting with the volunteers, with donation, but then yeah, you have to go through a website and stuff like that. It's not very effective. So I think we have to be very creative on giving a service and put it into a win-win solution between the service provider and also the user, the community.
Mm-hmm.
That way people will donate more and people will fund or give grant.
Yeah, Liko, any final comments before we finish?
No, I can only say exactly what Fred said. I agree entirely. I mean, but as I said in with the Istanbul picture, it's all about creativity, and if we have a wealth of creativity in our community, and I'd be very surprised if we wouldn't find solutions. I mean, just look at all the blossoming diversity of platforms. Where's that coming from? Because it's people that are creative and that are willing to make a difference and provide ways of. So if there is one, like, yeah, I don't know, one is shutting down the paywall and 5 others pop up without a paywall. So I think it's gonna work.
On that, that's a great optimistic tone to end on. I think we can make this, we can figure out a solution and make this work. It doesn't have to be, it can be a paywall or not a paywall, but the real thing I think both of you agree on, like, it's really, we know what works best for the community. I think that's more important than anything else, and something that enables a community to participate and be involved and be able to utilize Hospitality Exchange in their daily lives, including importantly through an app or a platform that's accessible to everyone. So great, I thank you both. I look forward to continued discussion and finding some of these creative solutions as we go forward. And I appreciate, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities for all these platforms to find new solutions and enable kind of the dreams and things that we hope for when we've all joined Couchsurfing or Hospitality Club so many years ago. So thank you. I'll pass it back on to the MC. But thanks again, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.